So this whole track used to be made of bricks, that's why they call it the Brickyard. The double-decker grandstand, full of people certainly in the start area anyway, looking forward to a great race. The safety car, very much the star of the Canadian Grand Prix, led loads of laps. And if a car stalls on the grid here, because it's this super high-speed section from the Indy 500 track going the other way, you can see the walls for yourself. It's very difficult to get a car off the grid in a lap that's just over 70 seconds. So if a car stalls on the grid today, they may well use that absolutely immediately. Beautiful grid girls with their flags on there. I'm not sure I can reach as high. Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful, how are you?
Yeah, good stuff. So have you met any of the drivers? Have you met Lewis or anybody?
No, I have not.
Yeah, okay, good. So what have you got to do today? What's your role today on the grid?
We are standing and we are looking gorgeous and fabulous, and we are giving these handsome drivers beautiful women to look at along with them.
I would say that's job completely done already then. Well done. See you later. Let's have a look at what's going on in Lewis Hamilton's neighbourhood. He's not back on the grid yet. Here's a man called Pharrell Williams. We're live on British television. Pharrell, quick chat. Now you're a rap singer, hip-hop, you're a producer for Justin Timberlake and Nelly, and you do clothes, you do shoes, you do everything. Yeah, you're a busy guy.
Thanks.
Okay. Plenty of words, and not today necessarily, obviously. But you're with Lewis Hamilton on the front of the grid here. Do you know Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good stuff. Anything you can do with him, for him in the future?
That's under wraps, but really and mainly today we're here to support, his brand and what it is that he represents. I mean, himself, he's a good kid, and I think he represents a lot of humility for all of his achievements. I mean, it's his 7th race. I mean, he's doing great. He's really doing great, and for him, he just sees a different kind of world. He thinks that any and everything is achievable, and we stand behind that and we support that. I mean, it sounds like gibberish, but it's really what's got us here. We're here because this kid really believes that he can do anything that he wants to do. He puts his mind to it. Wealth is not of the heart and the mind. It's not of the pocket. It's of the heart and the mind.
So he sounds like he's really motivated you. Now, I understand you drive a Ferrari Enzo on the road, yeah? Are you a bit of a racing driver or frustrated racing driver?
No one drives slower than me. I also have a McLaren, too.
You got a McLaren too, so that's like about 2 million quid's worth of kit, yeah? But I guess it looks good.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, well, Lewis is back on the grid now and getting in the car, second pole position for him. We'll just give him a bit of a wave. Anthony, what's Lewis? You just escorted him to the toilets. What's he got to say?
Nothing really. Just pretty calm, fairly prepared for the race. Just looking forward to it.
Okay, we're going to wander down the grid, see who else we can find. Jets flying overhead. Let's see a big story today. These two McLarens with Alonso second on the grid too. They're about 10 kilometers per hour, something like 6 miles an hour slower down this main pit straight, although they're overall faster on the lap than the Ferraris. So the Ferraris are going to be hoping they get a smell of a slipstream early on, because otherwise I don't think they're going to have a prayer of staying with these McLarens. I don't know if Alonso's on the grid. The drivers more and more are staying away until the last moment. Let's just have a quick word with Ron Dennis. Ron, quick word. Congratulations again. You've got the dominant car. Your drivers are both fighting for the World Championship. Lewis 8 points ahead of Fernando. How are you going to stop them tripping over each other like your two drivers did last year? What can you do about that?
Me personally, nothing. These are two competitive but fair racing drivers. They know that tangling in the first two corners isn't good for either of their championship hopes, so I hope common sense and intelligence will prevail.
You'll still be a big sigh of relief in turn 3, I'm sure, if they're both running.
Actually, I'm going to hold my breath for a lap.
Okay, see you later. Right, there's one young man I want to talk to who's 7th on the grid, Sebastian Vettel. I hope I can find him. I hope I'm not too late to have a quick word, because I'm just really keen to know what's going through his head. No, finished. Not one quick word. He did say if he was putting his helmet on. All right, we'll just take a quick look at the guy, but I did talk to him earlier on and say, is he up for talking on the grid? He's just 19 years old. What has he got to what experience has he got to draw on at that age to know you can throw me off the grid, son? Well, you'll have to try harder than that. Right, let's see who else is in the field. I've got to head this way. I thought I saw Bernie and Tony George. We want to know. Tony George, how are you doing? Good to see you again. So, are we going to come back to Indy for another Grand Prix?
I hope so.
Yeah, so do we. What is it hinging on? Is it hinging on Bernie being benevolent?
No. We just have to talk about all the things we need to do better. And, I think everyone wants to be back here for a long term. So, just a few things we've got to work out that we don't have time this weekend to do.
Well, the track looks good. The crowd seem happy, so I hope we put on a good show for you here in America.
Thank you. I'm sure you will.
Steve.
Well done, Martin, and the race will be underway as soon as Martin Brundle leaves that grid. Some final thoughts from you, Mark Blundell, especially on the drag race that we're set for down to that first corner. Who's going to come out on top?
Well, I think Lewis is still going to be focused on getting into the turn one. But I have to say the big thing for me, I think, is going to be the heat and the tyre temperatures and the degradation on the tyres. And that's going to be the thing that's going to worry most of the drivers today, Steve. That's the problem. But saying that, Bridgestone done a fabulous job with the tyres. We're all on a control tyre, and I don't think there'll be any effects of what we've seen over the last couple of years or so.
How relevant is it to a driver? How relevant is it to Fernando Alonso to come to a place like Indianapolis and know that you've never really performed well here?
Well, it's always a little bit of a bugbear for some drivers that, there's some circuits stick in their mind and they don't actually get a result that time and time again. If you can try and get over that, yeah, obviously it's a wonderful thing, but I wouldn't be surprised that Alonso's already sort of got in his mind that it's going to be a tough race and a tough day in the office, and Lewis has just got an outstanding amount of pace, and if he does come second again, Alonso to Lewis, I really see this championship lightening up.
Well, Lewis Hamilton, of course, comes here with no Indianapolis experience, but he's certainly living the American dream, and it's the United States Grand Prix that has many of the right ingredients to persuade the American audience toward Formula One, especially the arrival of young talent and a really exciting new star. They'll be watching with interest to see how Lewis reacts to this latest examination of his ability and composure, and so will we. The countdown to the start is coming next. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where some great motorsport reputations have been built and motor racing history has been made. And that's the prospect again today. Lewis Hamilton on pole position for the United States Grand Prix, which will be described by Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody at home. Happy Father's Day. Well, there hasn't been a British winner of the US Grand Prix for 24 years, so can Lewis Hamilton change that particular piece of history? Huge crowd here at the Brickyard, as it's known, to see this Formula One race, and Lewis Hamilton starting on pole position. He's certainly in great shape this weekend, as he was in Canada. There is the Yard of Bricks. That's what the whole circuit was paved with back in the early part of the 20th century. This is one of the oldest racetracks in the world. Of course, the infield section that was built for the Formula One teams is only 8 years old, and that is a look at the layout of it. Well, Hamilton's certainly in great shape this weekend, as he was in Canada last weekend. He's built up his approach to this track, his knowledge and his feel for it, ironing out any little problems with his technique, adapting himself to its demands. Particularly the middle part of the lap was giving him problems on Friday. It's so impressive the way he's dialed himself in.
Man, it's so hot, isn't it? The track must be 50 degrees.
Hey, firm. It is very hot.
It is extraordinarily hot. In fact, it's 59 degrees, the track temperature, and air temperature 36, and that's actually getting up beyond the limit of what these tyres are actually designed to handle. 59 degrees is going to be pretty tricky, and it's certainly a critical part of the story today, looking after the rear tyres in particular. And there are 2 Bridgestone tyre compounds that they have to use during the course of this Grand Prix. The soft one is the faster one, but it tends to lose performance if you try and take too much speed out of it early on, and that's going to be a critical part of the early phase of this Grand Prix. Once again, Hamilton's principal opposition this afternoon is world champion Fernando Alonso. He starts alongside him on the front row of the grid. As you can see, Hamilton did 2 laps that were good enough for pole yesterday, so it'll be interesting to see how much more fuel Alonso has than Hamilton. Some people think 2, maybe 3 laps more. Ferrari, well, this has been a Ferrari stronghold. They've won 6 out of 7 races here at Indianapolis, but at the moment they seem to be struggling for the outright pace to match the McLarens here. Massa ahead of Raikkonen once again. Heidfeld could have been in front of both of them, but he made a little mistake in qualifying. That's a best of the year qualifying for Heikki Kovalainen there in 6th place. Sebastian Vettel, the 19-year-old, making his debut, standing in for Robert Kubica at BMW. He's 7th on the grid. Great effort from him. Jenson Button there down in 13th. Terrific lap from him. Honda have been struggling this weekend throughout practice, and that was a terrific qualifying lap for him. Anthony Davidson 16th. David Coulthard lines up 11th, and look at the times, how close they are. Just 2 seconds covers the entire field. Well, last year, Martin, we had two McLarens taking each other off in the first couple of corners. We don't need that today, do we?
No, we don't. We need a great race, and I think we're going to see if the McLarens are clean and get away nicely and they can break the toe to the Ferraris. I think the main struggle is going to be, can Ferrari hold off BMW, certainly the BMW of Heidfeld. It's a big ask for Vettel in his first Grand Prix as a teenager to get up there and mix it, but then that's what we thought about Lewis Hamilton, isn't it, at 22. Fisichella's on a one stop, so he'll be a bit sluggish from 10th on the grid, I would imagine, and goodness only knows what his tyres will be like towards the end of each of those long stints. And midfield, I think it's going to be absolutely manic and crazy. And what happens down at turn 1, you've got such a wide track and such a long run down to it, and then it's very much a filter into one small space, and that's where they start tripping over each other. But ironically, it was actually in turn 2 where they tagged last year. Just they all try and get away, you get a concertina effect, and then we have the accidents unfold. But the drivers have been pretty sensible this year, and a lot of them realise that their result is going to be their result to an extent. If they do their job, there's no point in taking a risk in the first corner, but you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. You've got to go in hard enough, but at the same time you don't want to go in too hard. That's a really critical judgment. Probably the easiest place for that is to be out front. Hamilton will have his braking point absolutely firmly in his mind.
There's a white patch just in front of Alonso's start box. You'll see it possibly when we zoom out slightly. I believe that was an oil spillage from an earlier race. They put cement dust down on it, but that's certainly not going to help his traction off the grid.
Could have been the makeup dripping off the girls while standing at the front of the grid, I'm not sure.
As they go off then on their parade lap, it's going to be a 73-lap race around this 2.6-mile Indianapolis road course, using part of the banked oval. The 500, the Indy 500, goes the opposite way down this straight. That's turn 1, you can see at the back, effectively, of the Indy 500. It's a 4-corner oval, a historic race stretching back to the early part of the 20th century. And the Formula 1 cars turn right before they reach the end, and there's the infield section, which runs alongside the golf course here. Well, Lewis Hamilton will know that two other great British racing drivers of the past won their first race and then straight away afterwards won their second. I bet they're both watching this evening back in the UK. Nigel Mansell and Damon Hill, they're both big Lewis Hamilton fans, amazed as they both are by the way he started his Formula 1 career, and both of them will remember those great moments from their own career, bouncing back-to-back victories, having just taken their first win. Look at the margin that McLaren has over Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. 28 points going into this race. Now look, we're on board with Scott Speed. You see the white stripe on the tyres there. That denotes the softer of the two Bridgestone tyre compounds. It looks like most people have decided to go with that at the start of this one, apart from Kimi Raikkonen, we're being told, who used up quite a lot of sets of soft tyres yesterday during qualifying. There is Raikkonen, the second of the two Ferraris without the white stripe on his tyre. Watch out for that throughout the Grand Prix, because that could well be big part of the story.
Well, cunning plan by Raikkonen or desperation?
Okay, Lewis, if you could warm your brakes, please warm your brakes. Jakob Zervik concerned about the temperature. And more brake temperature, please, Lewis. More brake temperature.
Okay, and there's a heavy lock-up there coming from Lewis as he's trying to get that brake temperature in, which is not the news you want. And of course the team know that there's a sensor on each brake, and it's manifold in where it's being presented on the pit wall, in the garage, even back in the UK they could be reading that with the stream of data that'll be coming through, and they know that he hasn't done enough work with his brakes, so he's got a few hundred meters to put that right. So easy to do. So easy to do. You're busy warming your rear tyres and the guy in front's busy warming his brakes, and you meet in the middle. These cars do not have brake lights. They would be about as useful as an ashtray on a motorbike, I think. Brake lights on a Formula 1 car, you'd never be able to react to them.
That was Sebastian Vettel, 19-year-old, making his debut here. There'll be a number of drivers, I think, around him on the grid who will be slightly nervous. Trulli, Kovalainen, Heidfeld, Webber, Fisichella, as to what the young man is going to do off the start line. They have no information on him at all. They don't know his psychological profile. There's that white splodge I was telling you about on the racetrack. I wonder how that will impact on the grip that Alonso gets away. Jean Todt, the boss of Ferrari, presided over 6 victories here in Indianapolis. What chance does he feel he has here this afternoon? They need certainly to make an impact at the start. Ideally try and get in front of the McLarens as early as they can.
Very slow to form up today, very, very slow. The car's been on the front of the grid 3/4 of a minute.
Well, you know the drill. When the 5 lights go out, the US Grand Prix will be go. Lewis Hamilton on the right, Alonso on the left, and it is go! Great fight by Alonso. He's got a terrific start. So has Hamilton. He's got a slight edge on him, though. Alonso tucks in behind to protect the Ferrari from the Ferraris. Is Alonso going to try another one of his famous runs down the outside? No, he is not. And it looks like the BMW of Heidfeld's got up well. Kovalainen as well. And I think Vettel may have gone straight on and cut the chicane. We believe there's some incident at the back, but at the front, clear away is Lewis Hamilton with Alonso behind him, and a great start, I believe, from one of the BMWs. I think it's Nick Heidfeld who'll be the 4th, Kovalainen is 5th, Raikkonen 6th. Alonso looks like he wants to get on with this, though.
Alonso hustling Hamilton all the way down the pit straight, all the way through turns 1 and 2, just trying to distract him in the mirrors. Lewis Hamilton would have none of it. He parked his McLaren in exactly all the right places, and now he's settled down a little bit. Alonso doing everything he could to distract Lewis, and who blames him? It was a BMW, I think, that was scampering across the grass. It'll be Vettel. He's down to P11, the teenager, and Ralf Schumacher out of the Grand Prix, who's crashed into Coulthard, we believe, who's coming in from P11 on the grid. Coulthard must have had a bad start or something, and Ralf Schumacher, is he out of Formula 1 at the end of this year? He's definitely out of this Grand Prix.
Hamilton leads across the line at the end of the first lap. Alonso is 2nd, Massa is 3rd, Heidfeld 4th, Kovalainen 5th, Raikkonen 6th. Waved yellow flags in turn 1 for that incident involving Ralf Schumacher and David Coulthard. And that's, there was an attempted to make an overtake there, but you're not allowed to pass under the yellow flags. That's one of the Toro Rossos there. And into the pit lane comes David Coulthard, who we believe was hit by Ralf Schumacher.
I think right side pod, and this is a Renault off the road of Fisichella, the man who was one stopping. I think that's turn 11. No, it's not, it's turn 4. It's turn 4, and Fisichella, well, that blows completely that long run strategy. And Alonso coming under pressure from Massa. Remember, the Ferraris have 6 miles an hour more plus the tow down the main pit straight. And if a Ferrari gets a sniff at the back of a McLaren, it'll be past. Too much damage, I think, on the right side pod of David Coulthard. I would imagine Ralf Schumacher has been in the side of that somehow. Fisichella then on his own at the moment. Barrichello's pitted as well. He just ran wide. Unforced error, served it straight into the net, across the gravel trap, and he got a little bit on the marbles. The front understeered wide, and as he braked for the corner, so puncture and damage to the front suspension for Barrichello. We've got 3 cars already out of the race.
Side by side down the main straight goes Antonio Liuzzi, battling with Alex Wurz over 11th place. And we saw Fisichella having a spin. He was in 8th spot at the time when he did that, in a good position. He'd made up 2 places off the start line, so that's a very expensive mistake for Giancarlo Fisichella. And I must also tell you that Jenson Button has had a difficult start to this Grand Prix, and he's dropped down into 16th place.
Liuzzi did make a pass there. He needed to have been more or less passed and ahead as he crossed the finish line, so it was perceived as a defence rather than a pass. You cannot pass under the yellows, you'll get a drive-through penalty. It's a marginal call. If you're coming from a long straight like this, it's very much a judgment call too. Track is clear now. Coulthard, a very short American Grand Prix for him.
Talking now with Dr. Helmut Marko, one of the driver advisors for Dietrich Mateschitz, the boss of the Red Bull organisation, which of course owns 2 Formula 1 teams, Red Bull and Toro Rosso. Hamilton leads then by just under a second from Alonso. Massa is 3rd. Heidfeld is 4th. Kovalainen 5th. Raikkonen 6th. Jarno Trulli is 7th. 8th is Mark Webber. 9th is Rosberg. Great start for him, as we've got some more action going on here between Liuzzi and Wurz still. This is the battle over 11th place. It's one of the great features of Indianapolis. Just behind them, you've got Sutil and Speed having a battle. Sutil in the orange Spiker, Speed in the Toro Rosso. It looks like Sutil's come out on top of that. He's up to 13th place, Adrian Sutil in the Spiker. And that's interesting because both the Spiker drivers we've seen have quite a lot of crashes during races this year, and they were told after Montreal to stop crashing and get the cars to the finish because there are points to be had in these kind of races. There's Barrichello out of the race.
A lot of drivers, a lot of people in the paddock impressed with the job that Sutil is doing in that spiker. Is he outperforming the car? Sort of thing that Webber did in a Minardi, Alonso did in a Minardi. So it'll do him no harm at all. Now let's see if we can see what happened between Ralf Schumacher and David Coulthard. But at the front, Hamilton realised he has to go defensive early, parked on the inside. Alonso thought about a big sweep around the outside, but Hamilton's got in a touch too deep. Alonso's fancying another go, and there it is, going on all at the back. It looks like Ralf. We're on board with Davidson in the Super Aguri. It's Ralf. Look, just locks his front wheels and slams into the side of Coulthard, who was minding his own business on the outside and is now out of the race.
But it was quite clear. He not only did he lock up, but he went sharp left.
Yeah, let's watch it again. So we're behind. That is Vettel. So he went in rather too deep, and as I said on the grid, how on earth would he work? What's his reference points? He has no reference points heading down there, but he got away with it. He's currently P10.
Yeah, he was on the outside of the Coulthard battle with Ralf battle, the instant I should say, and I think he just took avoiding action. You could see him turning the wheel away to the left, and a smart move that saved him. He's back up into 10th place at the moment. Lewis Hamilton, fastest man at the racetrack at the moment, only one lapping in the 1:13s. Everyone else is doing 1:14s or above. He's extended his lead now over Alonso to 1.5 seconds. Massa is third, Heidfeld fourth, Kovalainen fifth, Raikkonen sixth, and as I say, Vettel has managed to recover to 10th place. Button is having problems in 16th, and Anthony Davidson is down in 18th. And after that spin we saw for Giancarlo Fisichella, he is now last on the road, 19th place.
Raikkonen's hard tyre gamble not doing much good at the moment. Although the softer tyres go off more quickly, they're still overall fast, and this is the feeling of a slipstream behind the Toro Rosso. But now Liuzzi's got the high ground, got the right part of the racetrack into turn one, and he can just lift off wrong foot Wirtz and get a good drive out through turns 2 and 3. Wirtz struggling to keep the back of that Williams under control. Hamilton's on lap 6 though. He's 1.7 seconds ahead. This is the fight for 11th and 12th. Both these drivers fancying a chance of some World Championship points from there.
Yes, and of course Alex Wirtz got a podium last time out in Montreal just by sitting tight and steering his way through all the safety car periods. Ended up in 3rd place with Williams, and he needed that as well because his performances so far this season have not been particularly strong compared to teammate Nico Rosberg. And with that podium, he doubled Williams' haul for the season. So Hamilton continues to pull away from Alonso. It's almost 2 seconds now as they come through at the end of lap 6. Massa is in 3rd place. Heidfeld is 4th, Kovalainen 5th, Raikkonen 6th, Trulli 7th, and Mark Webber rounds out the top 8. This is lap 9 of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis. Jenson Button coming under some pressure from Giancarlo Fisichella. This is the battle for 16th and 17th places. Jenson Button struggling with the Honda all weekend. Did a great job in qualifying, but they've got a major test next week in Spain with a new front suspension and new bodywork for that Honda. They're looking to gain half a second from the updates, and that will hopefully put them into the midfield battle. It's been a torrid start to the year really for Jenson Button. Nothing he's doing wrong, just the car simply isn't fast enough. Well, the story of this race so far, Lewis Hamilton pulling away at the start from pole position. Fernando Alonso alongside him as Fisichella runs up the inside of Button, wheel to wheel in turn 8 here. Button tries to come back at him at turn 9. Has he given him enough room? They're side by side through the tight, twisty corners, about 40-50 miles an hour only at the apex there. Fisichella's keeping his foot in. Button's got the right-hander coming up, and well, 3 or 4 corners together of action here at Indianapolis, and it stays as it was with Button in front of Fisichella, but surely, Martin, it's only a matter of time.
It is, but I'm impressed with Button there. Brilliant driving by both of them, absolutely wheel to wheel, and Jenson shows he's still got spirit. Down in 16th, it is a matter of time. It is frustrating for him. He didn't go to Williams. The Williams are going well, the Honda's not. Everything about it is wrong for him at the moment. It's been a disaster, but he's still showing the determination and spirit, the bulldog spirit going on there. And now, just to add absolute insult to injury, Anthony Davidson's probably going to cruise past in Jenson's last year's car. But this was good stuff, and just the way the track layout works, Jenson knew if he just kept it there, and it was a brave outbreak by Fisichella, who's recovering from an unforced error early in the race. And Flavio there Well, getting very, very excited, but it's all about 16th at the moment for Fisichella. His other man, Kovalainen, is up in 5th, and Louise's man, David Coulthard.
David, there's always a potential for danger on the first lap here, but could you see that one coming?
No, I didn't. You know, I was quite a ways behind the guys I started with, because my start wasn't very good. I just kept a steady line into turn 1, left space on the inside because I wasn't sure who was there. And I think what happened, looking at the replay, Ralph and someone else came together, and it looks like he turned Ralph, and then that's why he T-boned me, because it was with his nose, so it's done a lot of damage and burst the oil cooler.
Just one of those things?
Well, it wasn't my fault, so I guess you know it doesn't change anything if someone pulls a hand up and says it was mine, because we're both out of the race.
Thanks.
5th retirement in 7 starts for David Coulthard. Just the 1 points-paying finish, where he finished in 5th place in Barcelona. That's the only points that the Red Bull team have got this season. So we've got 3 retirements so far. Coulthard, we've just heard from Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, all involved in that first corner incident. Hamilton pulling away from Alonso at the start. Heidfeld managed to get in front of Raikkonen, as did Heikki Kovalainen off the start line. So it's Hamilton, Alonso, Massa, the top 3. Heidfeld, Kovalainen, Raikkonen, 4, 5 and 6. Then it's Trulli, Webber, Rosberg and Vettel, the top 10.
The car is doing a strange noise. Checking everything is fine. Okay, Daniel, which noise? Where do you find the noise? Okay, Daniel, keep pushing, you're racing full, keep pushing, keep trying. We're taking the data, there's nothing.
Interesting illustration of how the language of Formula One is English. Even though both men speaking were Italian, they were speaking in English.
Yeah, he's about to get drilled by Wirtz. Wirtz got the inside line this time. Can he keep it in enough? He should just about. No, he couldn't. Liuzzi, though, probably vibration. I bet he's locked a wheel somewhere and you get a big vibration. But that's a great scrap going on there between Liuzzi and Wirtz. Sato's under investigation for Super Aguri, car number 22, overtaking under the yellows. Well, we saw quite a bit of that going on, didn't we, when they were clearing away the mess from Ralf Schumacher coming together with David Coulthard in the first corner. And almost, well, in fact, every time these days, when you see a sign like that come up on the computer, the driver gets penalised.
Well, Hamilton is 0.3 of a second a lap faster than Alonso in this opening stint. The gap now up to 2.5 seconds after 12 laps. And let's get some news from the pit lane and Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that was a Honda own goal, that was, because it was Jenson Button that Takuma Sato overtook under the yellow flag. So people in Japan won't be too impressed with that. But just on Jenson Button, apparently he's reported back that he's not happy with the car and they're looking at ways to change it. And as I speak, the Honda mechanics just having a look, just taking the tyres that he's going to change at his stop off their racks and just changing some tyre pressures. But Jenson not happy with that. Williams also believe that Liuzzi may have overtaken Wirtz under yellows.
Yeah, but they'll have to look back and see as this is Fisichella coming up on Scott Speed. He's recovering, he's got a much faster car. Should make his way through this pack, even though he's one stopping. I hope Jenson Button's one stopping, because he's lapping about 3 seconds a lap off the lead pace. You said they're looking for half a second next weekend in Spain, James. Well, I think they're looking for quite a bit more than that. Half a second might just pop them into the solid midfield.
That's the first stage, and then they've got more and more new parts to come to the car throughout the second half of the season. Big push from everybody at Brackley and Northampton at the Honda factory. And as I say, half a second will get them into the midfield, the back end of the midfield pack with Toyota, Red Bull, Williams and Renault, and then it's going to take some more to get them up ahead of that as well. It is a development race in Formula One. That's one of the reasons why McLaren have a clear advantage over Ferrari, who started the season a second a lap faster in Australia, but already after 6 races, it's McLaren the dominant package, and that's all about development. Also the BMW, Nick Heidfeld showing just how quick that car has become over the course of the last month or so.
In case you've forgotten, I had momentarily, Lewis Hamilton leads, it's lap 14, he's 2.5 seconds clear of Alonso. Not very much, is it? Long way to go yet. And Massa is just another 2.5 seconds adrift. Wirtz still trying to find a way past, and that is Sato. It's going to be Sato, who we are pretty sure is going to get a penalty anyway, with Sutil. So, and he's gone round. Caught the grass and round he goes.
Yeah, the hero of Montreal, Takuma Sato, finished 6th, having overtaken both Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso during the Grand Prix, driving a Super Aguri against the McLaren and Ferrari. unfortunately, it's a bit of a 0-0 situation, and he is out of this Grand Prix.
Now, I've driven that car and a lot of other F1s lately, and this anti-stall system they have means it's virtually impossible to creep out of the pit lane or out of the gravel trap by using a bit of clutch, because the anti-stall kicks in. It means that when you've got a hardened gravel trap like that, normally if you're really easy with the clutch, just edge the car out. And he's gone wide, very similar to Fisichella's accident, very, very similar, and ran wide with understeer and then turned in on the grass. And if he was able to just ease the clutch out, he might just drive out of there. You've got to give it quite a lot of revs, and it just immediately does that, digs a couple of holes like you're on the beach.
It's interesting, it's almost exactly the same place as it happened to Fisichella, isn't it? Fisichella dropping from 8th place down to now 14th, but he was as low as 19th after that spin. There's Aguri Suzuki, the boss of the Super Aguri team, and that is the top 8 at the moment. Hamilton continuing to take 2 or 3 tenths of a second a lap out of Alonso. Lap 18 of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis.
Come on, Fizzy, get 2 more and then you'll be clear. 2 more and you'll be clear.
Well, Fisichella spun from 8th place early in this race. He dropped to 19th. He's fighting his way back through the field. He's currently in 13th place, and as his engineer said, past 2 more cars and he will have a clear track, because in front of Tony Liuzzi is 23 seconds of empty racetrack, and the Renault is faster than both of these 2 cars in front of them. That's the top 8 still. Lewis Hamilton has pulled away at the start of this race from pole position. Teammate Fernando Alonso, the reigning world champion, is 3 seconds behind him, and for the first time on that last lap, Alonso matched Hamilton's lap times. Wirtz has a look up the inside of Liuzzi, as he has many times, and Louise Goodman has found Ralf Schumacher.
Ralph, we've heard from David, who you collected at the end of that accident, but what can you tell us about how it started?
Well, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, I think it was a normal race incident. Things do happen at the start, you know. The grip was not perfect, and the tyre locked a little bit, but I mean, it was pretty messy up there, and I just got into the way of David, or into my way, one of the two. It's just unfortunate, a bit unlucky for both, because I think both could have had a good race.
Thanks, Ralph.
There's Kimi Räikkönen in 6th place. It's been another quiet afternoon for him. He's the only driver out there to have chosen to run the harder of the 2 Bridgestone tyre compounds at the start of this Grand Prix. The softs are quicker, but they take a bit of managing, and already we've heard a few drivers radioing into their teams to say that the rear tyres are starting to go off a little bit. And what's interesting, Martin, is Alonso on the previous lap matched Hamilton. On this last lap, he's just beaten him for the first time. What does that tell you?
Yeah, and I think Lewis knows that. He's just responded with the fastest first sector of the race so far, and he appears to just about have an answer for it, but this race is far from over. It's only lap 19 and of the 73, and Alonso is pegging Hamilton, no doubt about it, and Massa just 3 seconds down the road as well in 3rd, and Heidfeld still within 9 seconds of the lead as Hamilton sets a new fastest lap of the race on a 1:13.3. He has responded, and Hamilton then already lapping people.
Hamilton just sets a new fastest lap of the race, having lapped Christian Albers across the start-finish line, 1:13.3. So Hamilton responds to Alonso, but it is very cat and mouse at the front here, very close as Räikkönen tries to look at a move past his fellow Finn, Heikki Kovalainen.
There must be something on the track. We saw what we call the oil flags, but it's not always oil. If I can see it out of the window now, there's some blue plastic. It's a blue flag or something that's just been run over. There it is. That's going to get run over shortly by, I think it was a Williams. And so they have this red and yellow striped flag that's basically something slippery on the track. We call it the oil flag.
We see one of the flag marshals poking their flag through the fence here. So they let go. Such a bit of draft coming off the cars going past them. This is the beginning as Hamilton goes up onto the banking of 23 seconds of full throttle, flat-out running here at Indianapolis. The car, as he comes through 13 there, is doing about 180 miles an hour, building up to a maximum speed of around 200 miles an hour.
And Lewis is coming up to the back of this big gaggle of cars. Now, this could be a turning point in the race as Sutil, Albers rather, who's been lapped, sort of has a think about pulling back out of the slipstream of Alonso. The McLarens are not that fast in a straight line, but they're bordering on slow. But on an overall lap, clearly, they're the best things out there. Ted has news.
Yeah, I can't see whether anyone's cleared that flag, but such is the nervousness down here at McLaren about a possible safety car that ruined Alonso's race. I think they're actually they're thinking about bringing their drivers in a touch early just to make sure they get them out of the way before a safety car. The mechanics have just gone into the garage to get the tyres, so we're close to it.
Okay.
We believe that Lewis is coming in first.
Thank you
James.
for that, Ted. And Nick Heidfeld makes a mistake, and that gives Heikki Kovalainen the chance to get through. Kovalainen up into 4th place, and Raikkonen almost took that place away as well. So is this more of the situation of the rear tyres going off and problems as mechanics for McLaren come out into the pit lane?
It's a touch earlier than I thought McLaren would be out. It'll be interesting to see how far the Ferraris can go, although Raikkonen's now 18 seconds adrift. And there is Heidfeld. He spun it on the way in. He spun it on the way into the turn 1, and the drivers have all wrecked the little escape road down there. I do not believe he'll get any kind of penalty for coming back on the track. And Lewis Hamilton from the lead pits, as does Felipe Massa for Ferrari. So they've pitted exactly at the same time. Ferrari were not running heavier. Where is Alonso, though? How much further can he go? And can he pump in some hot laps?
Hamilton takes on a new set of soft tyres. Massa also takes on soft tyres for the second stint. Heidfeld is going for the harder tyre in the middle stint here, having just made that mistake into turn 1. So Fernando Alonso leads this race. Heikki Kovalainen in the Renault is now 2nd. Raikkonen is 3rd. The race leader, Hamilton, and the man who was running 3rd at the time, Massa, have both made their pit stops back out on the track. And
Heidfeld was released after the tyres had finished rather than the fuel, so it suggests there was a problem also on Heidfeld's lap there on a pit stop. I'm surprised the BMWs are not faster in the Grand Prix. Vettel 9th at the moment, tucked up just behind Rosberg. But Alonso leads then on lap 22 from Heikki Kovalainen, who's just 15.6 seconds behind as Alonso pits 1 lap later. No time to do any damage to Hamilton's lead, and Ted is there.
Yeah, and I'm absolutely sure that Alonso has about 2 more laps worth of fuel in his pocket, and McLaren just nervous about this safety car. As we said, if anyone goes off into the wall, then that's his race destroyed. Stops going very well. Soft tyres going on again, as Lewis was at that one. But interesting how long Massa's stop was, and that's a stop 7.6. Massa took on more fuel in that stop.
Okay, so the Ferrari of Felipe Massa is going to run a longer middle stint. This is a 2-stop race. We've seen the first round of pit stops slightly earlier than most people expected, but the second round will be in the late 40s, possibly early 50s in this race. A 2-stop race for most of the front runners. Well, we saw Takuma Sato spinning off the racetrack, having previously been warned by the stewards that they were looking into the possibility he may have overtaken under yellow flags. Let's get his story of the race. He's talking to Louise Goodman.
Well, Takuma, we saw some demon overtaking manoeuvres from you at the last race. A bit too demon this time, though, overtaking under the yellows?
No, Jensen was overtaking me, so I wasn't overtaking at that time. But a shame. The race was looking good until that point. I got on the dodgy side and I spun off. It wasn't a great day for me.
Thanks, Taku.
So Heikki Kovalainen leads the Grand Prix. He's another rookie this year, but he's been in the shadow of Hamilton, whose achievements have been truly stellar. Kovalainen, though, starting to piece his season together. He had a difficult time during practice and qualifying in Canada, but he got it together in the race, and now Alonso is coming up on the back of the Toyota.
Alonso's lost a lot of time behind. He was bitching about Jarno Trulli, his former mate and teammate at Renault in Monaco, big time, and he lost time on that outlap, tucked up behind the Toyota. The blue flags were waving, and he only really released him on the pit straight.
Yeah, so that was for position because Trulli has yet to stop. So Alonso up into 4th place. Kovalainen leads in the Renault. Raikkonen is 2nd for Ferrari. 3rd is Lewis Hamilton, who just set his fastest middle section of the race so far on his outlap. So he's pushing very, very hard on that new set of tyres. Trulli has just been overtaken by Alonso for 4th place. Mark Webber has yet to stop for Red Bull. He's 6th. Massa is 7th, having made his first stop. And then it's Rosberg 8th, Vettel 9th, and Heidfeld, who had a spin and then a pit stop, has dropped down to 10th place.
Yeah, Heidfeld quick, though. Heidfeld quick, now he's out there. I suspect the McLarens came in.
Jarno, you are always at least 2 or 3 times faster than the cars behind you. You're pulling away from the cars behind you, but you need to keep pushing. Because
Raikkonen pits then from second place. He didn't go a long way on those harder tyres. I think the McLarens came in earlier than we expected, James, because they were about to come across that big queue of cars, and it made sense. Good helmet cam shot there, like that.
Yeah, it's Ignazio Sansoni, the left rear mechanic, left front, I beg your pardon, mechanic for Ferrari. We've got one on the Renault team as well, so hopefully we'll see a little bit of that when Renault make a pit stop. Vettel, on his debut, makes his first Formula One pit stop for BMW, pitting from what was 9th place. Raikkonen goes back out on track, little twitch there into turn 1. So, looking at Fisichella going around the outside of Wirtz. That was a pass for 12th place, which has just happened. Wheel-to-wheel contact there for the two of them. Pretty tasty stuff, but he makes it through.
Between 6 and 7, you wouldn't really call it an overtaking place, but Fisichella in very much damage repair mode, and that's a good one.
Yeah, we think Fisichella's going to go quite a long way into this race before he makes a pit stop. This is it from Wirtz's point of view. They make contact a couple of times there, but well, Wirtz is used to the stern stuff. He's not afraid of a bit of physical action out there. This is the first time then that Heikki Kovalainen has led a Formula One Grand Prix. I believe it's the first time this season that Renault have led a lap. Reigning champions and the champions in 2005 as well. It's been a bit of a setback the way their year has started, but this is yet another indication that Renault are making the right moves to push themselves back towards the front of the grid.
Hamilton's effective lead, although he's second at the moment, over Alonso, down to just 2.7 seconds now. And there are 5 adrift of Kovalainen, catching him at 0.6 per lap. So in a few more laps they'll be on Kovalainen. Surely he'll pit within that time anyway. It's lap 26. Kovalainen leads by 5.5 over Hamilton. Alonso 2.7 behind them, and Trulli 4th, but he hasn't stopped. Webber 5th, hasn't stopped. Massa, the next man to stop, in 6th. Rosberg 7th, hasn't stopped. Heidfeld recovering in 9th. Raikkonen 10th. Vettel 11th, having now stopped. Look at this lot.
Fast and furious down the main straight. That's the Toro Rosso of Scott Speed battling with Jenson Button. That's the battle for 15th place, and once again Button in the thick of the action. He was actually behind Scott Speed the lap before, so he's managed to get in front of him.
Down the outside too, Speed's gone defensive, and Jenson says, I'll have a bit of that, I'm on the grippier line. That's good. Jenson's on it today. You'd never believe it back in 16th, would you? Net 15th now, but Jenson driving nicely.
Here comes Fisichella. That's Tonio Liuzzi, his fellow Italian. So having dispatched Wirtz, just this one car now to pass before he gets that lovely clear air that he'll be able to put some quick laps into. Now that's the congestion that the McLarens are keen to avoid. You see, you get caught up behind this lot, you can lose a lot of time. Hamilton though is having a slow lap. Half a second slower in the first lap. In fact, it's 2 slow laps. That last time through, he was 9/10 slower. Now Alonso is closing right up to him. He's only 1.9 seconds behind. Has Hamilton got some kind of problem? He's only just made a pit stop. So has Alonso. Possibly the tyre pressure's not right. Whatever it is, Hamilton doesn't feel comfortable out there.
Yeah, Hamilton had a 1:14.2, then a 1:14.8. Both of them very slow as Kovalainen pits from the lead. He was down in the low 1:14s at that point. Fastest man out there comfortably at the moment is Raikkonen, actually, and Raikkonen in the mid 1:13s now. He's got the softer tyres on, so we'll keep an eye out for him. Hamilton lead is now down to 1.4 seconds. He had a 1:14.9. That's the third slow lap of Lewis Hamilton.
Well, I tell you what it is, Martin, it's because he passed Albers on that last lap, who was very slow, and now he's tucked up behind Scott Speed and Anthony Davidson. So I think traffic is a big part of the story as we look at the Ferrari and the BMW very close to each other as Kovalainen comes back out. That's Raikkonen and Heidfeld, and Kovalainen, who was leading this race, has come out behind them. So Raikkonen 8th, sorry, Heidfeld 8th, Raikkonen 9th. And Kovalainen drops back in. Raikkonen 7th, Heidfeld 8th, Kovalainen 9th. It's confirmed up on the screens there.
Yeah, it'll take a little time to sort itself out, but that looked a disaster for Heikki Kovalainen. He wasn't particularly fast when he led those laps, and that's released Raikkonen now. Raikkonen passed Heidfeld and Kovalainen, and he can start to get on with it. And again, in the 1:13, Raikkonen now finally has a chance to get after it.
Well, Hamilton's pace again, slow on the first part of this lap, but he's got past the traffic. This is Fernando Alonso. There is Jarno Trulli and Christian Albers, who took some passing, I think. You can see how Alonso has gained on Hamilton. So the gap now just down to 1.2 seconds. Jarno Trulli yet to make his stop. He's third, Webber's fourth. Massa, who has stopped, is fifth. Rosberg, who has yet to stop, sixth. Raikkonen seventh. Heidfeld eighth. Kovalainen ninth. And Vettel in 10th place in the BMW.
Liuzzi must have some kind of straight line speed advantage. There's been a queue of cars behind him all afternoon, but he seems to be able to hold them off. There's Mark Webber, P4 at the moment.
Probably a little bit more front wing, mate, where you control it with the toys. I've got a vibration in the rear through the back as well.
Bit more front wing, mate. It's all very relaxed there from Mark Webber, and seems very calm and collected in there, doesn't he?
Well, he's looking for his first points finish of the season so far, the Australian, who's qualified more often than not in the top 10, but he's yet to translate that into a top 8 finish. Riding on board with Fisichella. He's going to do another one of these close contact things.
He's going to try between 6 and 7. It worked last time, and he doesn't even have to bash him out of the way this time, and he's through, because they can't pass him down the pit straight, so they're having to muscle Liuzzi out of the way at the back.
Okay, well, we think that part of the Hamilton going slow story was a little bit of traffic, particularly Christian Albers, who took some overtaking. Let's find out if there's anything more to it in the pit lane with Ted Kravitz.
No is the brief answer, James, because he's got straight back on the pace of 14.2, both for Hamilton and Alonso. You can tell it was traffic because the McLaren team manager, Dave Ryan, was on the radio to Charlie Whiting to ask people to move the blue flags out of the way, apart from that marshal who dropped his on the track, of course. But the bad news for Lewis is that he's going to come up very shortly to the Fisichella, Wirtz, Suttil and Button fight. That's the next traffic ahead.
Well, lovely helicopter shot of Lewis Hamilton. That's the margin to his teammate, the reigning world champion Fernando Alonso, who's playing a cagey game at the moment. He's used the traffic to his advantage to close it down to 1.2 seconds. And well, he's a smart customer, Alonso. He knew on Friday, looking at their performance relative to each other in the longer runs, that Hamilton was getting more performance over a longer time from these softer tyres. He's adapted his driving style accordingly, and Alonso is right in the hunt for victory here at Indianapolis as Mark Webber pits.
We saw the twisted front wing that he requested on the menu for the next pit stop, and away he goes. That's a good start from the Red Bull team. And Jarno Trulli then really the man sort of out of sync on stops. He's only 6 seconds off the lead and lapping at the same pace as the leaders. Trulli's got a very strong record here, hasn't he? He's always done extremely well at this racetrack.
Yeah, he has got a very strong record here. It's a strange, rather erratic car, isn't it, the Toyota? It seems to be incredibly slow at places like Monaco, and then here he is lapping, as you say, at the same sort of pace. Of course, they're carrying a fair bit more fuel than McLaren's down the Toyota, but yes, Jarno Trulli, he's finished 4th here 3 times and 5th once. So he always goes well around here. And of course, don't forget that very controversial race back in 2005. He stuck it on pole position. Still Toyota's only Formula One pole.
Hamilton leads then by 1 second exactly now. He just had a scruffy end to that lap, lost 0.3 of a second. Plenty of black dust coming off Lewis Hamilton's front brakes down into turn 1. They don't look like they've been called off from racing yet. A long way to go as finally Trulli pits from what was 3rd position. And Massa in the pit stops has fallen back by 14 seconds now off the lead. So bad phase of the race from him. Rosberg still hasn't pitted. He's up to 4th. Raikkonen making his way through that traffic is just struggling for pace at the moment. Hamilton, lap 32, 1 second ahead of his teammate Alonso.
Approaching half distance in the American Grand Prix, you can see the last 3 laps, Fernando Alonso has taken pretty much 0.2 of a second a lap out of race leader Lewis Hamilton, and they're about to come up behind this bunch of slower cars, which includes Anthony Davidson, Scott Speed, Jenson Button, Alex Wirtz and Antonio Liuzzi. So 5 cars that they've got to get through, and this is where Alonso is getting close up to see if he can have a chance through these back markers to pass Lewis Hamilton. Well, the story so far, Hamilton led away from pole position. He's got the fastest lap so far of this race. He was the quicker man in the opening stint of this Grand Prix before the first round of pit stops. But in this second stint, Alonso has been the quicker of the two McLaren drivers. And that is the challenge now facing Lewis Hamilton. It's the motor racing equivalent of an assault course that he's got to get through. And he's not to give anything away to teammate Alonso.
Alonso looks slightly more comfortable, and I'm talking fractions here, in this phase of the Grand Prix, and it's kind of, I'm going to get you kind of look about him. But where are we at, I wonder, with McLaren? In Monte Carlo, where they had a 1-2 in the bag easily, the team chose to pace them. At certain phases, I think Lewis chose to ignore those instructions, and I'm pretty sure Fernando Alonso will ignore them as well at the moment. I think they're racing them absolutely flat out. They are the fastest cars on the track. The traffic is coming up, and there's Wirtz still. I think what's happening with Wirtz, his 7th gear's too short. I think he's getting in the slipstream and then hitting the limiter. They're limited to 19,000 RPM. And if you want to tune your gear ratios to be very close to the limit, but if you get in a slipstream, you start bouncing off that limiter, and I think that's why Wirtz is just constantly frustrated against that Toro Rosso down the pit straight. The lead is just 0.8 now. Hamilton lap 36, 0.8 ahead of Alonso, and we're on board with Button.
We're on board with Button in 14th place. Alex Wirtz in the Williams ahead of us, Antonio Liuzzi ahead of him, but of course Button will have as much of a look in his mirrors at the moment because he knows Hamilton and Alonso are coming through. And the problem for Hamilton and Alonso is these guys are racing each other pretty hard, often more focused on each other than they are on the faster cars coming through. But well, we've seen real grit and determination from Jenson Button here this afternoon. Let's hope he gets out of Hamilton and Alonso's way. We believe that Button is only going to stop once here this afternoon. This is virtually the halfway stage in the Grand Prix, and he has yet to make his first pit stop. Same story up the front with Nico Rosberg, who started down in 14th place, his worst of the year, but he is now running 4th, yet to make a pit stop. And you can see Hamilton now closing in on the back of Scott Speed. He's already dispatched Anthony Davidson in the last lap. But this is where the real business starts for Hamilton. Shoots past Speed, and now he's onto the back of Button.
Danger zone then, but the blue flags do have it. Such a penalty for the drivers, and they have to get out of the way within 3 marshals post of blue flags, assuming the marshal hasn't thrown his flag away onto the racetrack. And otherwise they're going to get penalised. That's why they leap out of the way so quickly.
But the good news for Hamilton is coming up on a straight, but he's not been able to take advantage of it. Meanwhile, Liuzzi and Wirtz still having that wonderful private ding-dong. This is not a great place to catch slow traffic. Slowest part of the racetrack. I think Button's let Hamilton through. Yep, as he has, and Alonso. So good work there by Jenson Button. Now let's hope that Wirtz and Liuzzi do the same thing.
I tell you, when you're sitting in the cockpit, you've been in a race-long battle and the leaders come up to lap you, you can't help but think of it as an opportunity to grab a place from the guy in front that's been holding you up. So you're half respecting the leaders and half hoping it'll give you an opening.
Well, it's fallen quite well. I think he should be able to get Wirtz down the straight. Giancarlo Fisichella has pitted to make his one and only stop of the afternoon. Can Alonso get Wirtz before turn 1? Yes, he can. And now Hamilton has only Liuzzi to dispatch. I have to say, that's top quality backmarker driving there. No one's been held up.
It's not something you really want on your CV, that statement, but they did the job.
And it's interesting because a couple of races ago, you remember Lewis Hamilton in one of the interviews after qualifying, I believe, saying he didn't want to get held up by the monkeys at the back. Rather disparaging statement towards the guys who push very hard at the back of the grid, and it wasn't quite in character for Hamilton, whose humility is one of his foremost qualities, to use that description. But clearly no one took offence because, apart from Liuzzi, who's not let him through yet, and now look how close Alonso is.
Liuzzi has been pretty much a problem for drivers all day, and both the back of those Ferraris, McLaren stepping out, Hamilton even more so than Alonso, and Liuzzi pits then. He clears. Look at this.
This could be a
Surely
chance.
he's got a chance in the slipstream.
I think he might well have. He got better drive, better acceleration out of the slower corners. This could be the lead going for Hamilton. Alonso senses an opportunity. They are side by side down the pit straight in Indianapolis. The two teammates, you could put a cigarette paper between the wheels. Hamilton holds his nerve, but Alonso is on the warpath.
But I tell you, you know from GP2, you will not frighten Lewis Hamilton off the road. And Hamilton, with every opportunity to make a new boy's mistake down there and lock the wheels, didn't. Held his line, held his nerve, braked just in the right place. They're putting 1,500 pounds per square inch pressure into the braking system to pull 5 times the force of gravity to they get rid of 210 miles an hour down to 70. They're losing 140 miles an hour in 80 metres, and you have to press it absolutely by the right amount at the right time, and that's what Hamilton did. Look at that for a good slipstream effect, but Hamilton parked his car on the inside and then braked beautifully.
Well, that's what comes from being a racing driver from the age of 8. Both of these men were able to start karting at 8 years old. They got so much experience. Hamilton, 14 years of racing experience, and he's only 22. And a steely nerve. Now, we saw a little mistake from Alonso, who goes wide again. What's that all about? The blue flag flying across the road. And Alonso just swerving across that.
That's a little signal. It's a little signal to the pit wall, I would imagine. I don't think Fernando's emotions are fully under control, in the car or out of the car at the moment. And that was a message.
Well, we're starting to see a little bit of brake dust coming off Lewis Hamilton's car. It's always not a hugely difficult braking circuit here, but there are a couple of big stops, so maybe that's a little bit of a factor. Alonso perhaps getting a bit frustrated. Ted Kravitz, you shed any light on the McLaren situation?
Yeah, it is a message, you know, and Ron Dennis is looking sturdy-faced at the monitors. Everybody down here absolutely wincing. They were not loving it like we were. They were wincing down here at McLaren. They just want a 1-2. They don't particularly care about the order, and the head of Mercedes-Benz is standing right next to me, not a smile on his face. He is not too happy about this. They've got to control the situation. This is McLaren season distilled, isn't it?
Yeah, Dr. Sech, the boss of Daimler Chrysler, and a big motor racing fan, one of the big supporters of Mercedes' participation in Formula One. Well, this situation of two great drivers in the same team had to come to a head sooner or later. In Monaco, 2 races ago, we saw Alonso had done enough to win the race by the time they got to the second stops, and so they called them off and Hamilton finished second. Hamilton may feel the situation is reversed here. If he can hold on to the second round of pit stops, he may feel he's done enough to win the race. Sliding the back of the car out through turn 2, pushing hard as into the pits comes Nico Rosberg from 4th place.
Yeah, but where's the beef? Hamilton's on pole, leads the race, gets tucked up behind a back marker. Alonso has a run out of him. Hamilton parks his car in the right place and brakes spot on. What's the problem? Why does he need to go and demonstrate to the pit wall? Hamilton's doing nothing wrong, nor are the team.
Yes, but this is a driver who doesn't take well to not winning, and we've seen that in the last couple of weeks. He went to the Spanish media and said, I don't feel comfortable at McLaren, haven't felt comfortable since the start. It's an English team, they gravitate towards their English driver. How that's been taken internally at McLaren, Lord only knows, but certainly externally they've been very professional. They've said, no, we give both drivers equal opportunities. It will be that way to the end of the season. And if you look at the margin back to the next non-McLaren, it's Felipe Massa, 12 seconds behind the race leader. That tells you that, at the moment anyway, this is a championship battle between the two McLaren men. And Alonso knows he needs to start recouping some of the margin to Hamilton, with more brake dust coming off Hamilton's car.
Yeah, that's been pretty much since the beginning. And a replay of Rosberg's pit stop, the fuel nozzle stuck on. You often get a bit of leakage there, but no problem. And he's away. And what's going on? Yeah, it's the spiker behind the two leading McLarens. Has put himself wide. Who was that? I don't know from there.
I think it's Albers. Christian Albers running in 18th place. 2 laps down on the leaders. His teammate Suttel is 15th. The Jenson Button check, he's 12th. Anthony Davidson's right behind him in 13th place for Super Aguri. We have 4 retirements from this race. Takuma Sato, who spun, David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, who were all involved in an incident at the first corner. So no mechanical retirements yet, and this is lap 42.
Well, they're a dozen seconds ahead of Massa, these two McLarens, in 3rd place. Raikkonen's just 17 seconds behind now and taking the thick end of a second a lap out of them. McLaren can't call off the race. They've got to keep pushing as hard as they can. Their pace is not as amazing as we thought it was going to be, especially when they start squabbling with each other. And the only way McLaren should interfere, if it becomes obvious that Hamilton's actually slowing up, Alonso, and the Ferraris are catching.
He is on one stop. It's very close between you and him.
Rosberg is on one stop, they're telling Mark Webber, who's running 8th at the moment. Rosberg is 10th, and so we believe obviously Webber has to stop again. He's 10 seconds up the road from Rosberg, so he needs to get on with it a bit. He wants to be able to pit and rejoin in front, so we believe obviously Webber has to stop again. He's 10 seconds up the road from Rosberg, so he needs to get on with it a bit. He wants to be able to pit and rejoin in front. Well, check out the ITV F1 website if you'd like the chance to buy Lewis Hamilton's go-kart. It's going on eBay. It's a charity auction on eBay for the Tommy's charity, and the winner will, I think the bids close on Tuesday. The winner will be able to collect the kart from Lewis himself at a Vodafone McLaren Mercedes promotional event in London on Thursday. So have a look at that, and you'll be contributing to Tommy's, a very, very worthwhile children's charity.
Alonso having a poor lap here. He's lost about 0.8 of a second to Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's at 1:13.8. He got a bit back in the end of the lap, so Hamilton's lead back up to 1.1 seconds, and certainly nothing like it. There's no way you could justify moving Hamilton out of the way because he's holding up Alonso. There are the two Ferraris then that are now running 3rd and 4th. The deficit 12.7 seconds to the lead now. Raikkonen 17 seconds off the lead. He is now on the softer tyres and going better. Now remember, Raikkonen can also use the softer tyres in the final stint of the Grand Prix as well, whereas the three in front of him can't. They've got to use both types. Raikkonen's got the slower tyres out of the way. Both Hamilton, Alonso and Massa have to use the harder and slower tyres.
Yeah, and the way Raikkonen's going at the moment, he's actually faster than Felipe Massa now that he's got Rosberg out of the way, having made his stop, and that could mean that Raikkonen is in a position to leapfrog his teammate before the end of this Grand Prix. That'll be interesting. At the moment then, Hamilton leads Alonso, Massa 3rd, Raikkonen 4th, Heidfeld 5th, and Kovalainen holding on well in 6th place. 27 laps of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis Motor Speedway to go. Lewis Hamilton leading this one, 1.2 seconds from Fernando Alonso, having started from pole position. Felipe Massa is 3rd, Raikkonen 4th, Heidfeld 5th, Kovalainen 6th, Jarno Trulli 7th, and Mark Webber in 8th place. A moment ago, Jenson Button came into the pits to make his one and only stop of the afternoon, and they had a refueling rig problem on the Honda, and that's cost Jenson 7 seconds. So he has dropped back from Alex Burks, who also made his pit stop at the same time. They're circulating in 14th and 15th places. Anthony Davidson in the Super Aguri is battling with Adrian Sutil in the Spiker over 12th place. And the 19-year-old on his debut, Sebastian Vettel in the BMW, is just 2 seconds away from a World Championship points paying position. There's 26 laps to go, but a lot more racing to go on the track, because although Lewis Hamilton's been dumping a lot of brake dust out of his car throughout this race, he's held off everything that Alonso has been able to throw at him. Alonso slightly quicker in this middle phase of the Grand Prix.
Alonso just lost 1.2 seconds on this lap, and this is exactly why. Cutting across the grass on the exit of turn 8, and he'll be just behind. He's pushing hard enough, isn't he? So it is, as you say, 26 laps to go. There's several fights out there. The two leading McLarens, of course. Raikkonen, as Kovalainen pits from 6th place for Renault. Raikkonen is catching Massa very quickly indeed, with the softer tyres to come yet for him. Raikkonen, as we said earlier in the programme, could well become a strong force here this afternoon. Jarno Trulli was catching Heidfeld for 5th place, and Vettel, the 19-year-old, is catching Mark Webber as well for 8th, and a chance of a World Championship point on his debut.
Now Raikkonen's interesting because he lost a bit of time early on behind Rosberg, and without that he might have been quite a worry, I think, for the McLaren team, because he's 17 seconds behind them now, but travelling faster than anybody else on the racetrack. And as you say, he's not got to take the slowest type of tyre for the final stint of this race. So Raikkonen definitely a candidate for a podium, and if it hadn't been for a bit of traffic, he may have been able to give McLaren a bit of a hard time here this afternoon. There he is, closing in on the back of teammate Felipe Massa, currently running 3rd. as into the pits for the second time this afternoon comes 5th place man Nick Heidfeld.
Well, BMW keep flattering to deceive, don't they, in terms of their race pace. They look so strong through the weekend on the longer runs, and then just don't seem to quite deliver on race day for some reason. They've got a strategy. I don't know if it's they spend too long setting the car up for a quali lap, whatever it is, they don't deliver their full potential on race afternoon. Albeit Heidfeld finishing second last weekend, but overall, generally, we thought this afternoon they looked like they were going to sail past the Ferraris, and actually they've been left by them.
Well, we've just been handed a piece of paper by the stewards. Remember that Takuma Sato was under investigation for passing under waved yellow flags in turn 1. That incident at the first corner involving David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, all of whom were eliminated in that accident. Well, the stewards decided he did pass under yellow flags, and even though Sato is out of this Grand Prix, the penalty is a drop of 10 grid positions, as Heidfeld goes a little wide there. 10 grid positions at the next Grand Prix. So Sato is going to, wherever he qualifies in France, in 2 weeks' time, he will start 10 places back from there.
Well, he told Louise that, he said, well, Jensen was overtaking me, I wasn't overtaking him, so a bit of a difference in opinion there.
Well, Raikkonen really putting the hammer down. He's closing right up on the back of teammate Felipe Massa now. He has just set the fastest lap of the race. So Ferrari are unlocking some speed now, and it's looking good for Kimi Raikkonen. What kind of challenge can he pose to the McLarens, and what are the McLarens' tactics going to be like? As
Vettel on Webber.
Vettel tucks up behind Webber. This is the battle for 7th place.
Sorry, that's Heidfeld on Webber, that one. Heidfeld after that second shot. Vettel is just behind and catching. And we understand it's Alonso pitting first, so Hamilton did fuel slightly longer at the first stint, and Ted is down there.
There we go, Martin. There's our answer. So now we know why Alonso was annoyed, because he was on the shorter stint. He felt that it was the team's tactics. If they wanted to make this stint work for him, they should have let him pass Lewis, who was going longer in this stint, to get full advantage. So understandable Alonso's irritation, and indeed how now he's dropped back to 2 seconds behind Hamilton. So wow, it's going to be interesting to hear from him after the race. I imagine he'll be a little annoyed.
Well, he might well be, but at the end of the day, you've got to get the track position yourself, haven't you? And he did have one look at Hamilton when Hamilton lost some time behind Christian Albers going through the traffic there. But generally speaking, Hamilton's had enough in his pocket to keep Alonso behind him. So I'm not sure. I mean, clearly the situation is going to reach some kind of boiling point within that team, and it's a difficult management exercise for Ron Dennis and Martin Whitmarsh to try and control these two men. But it's wonderful for us, Martin. I mean, you think back to Grand Prix history, Fangio and Moss, 2 great drivers in the same team. Piquet and Mansell in the 80s, Senna and Prost in the 80s, as Lewis Hamilton dives into the pits. And there's nothing better than having 2 great drivers in the same team. Flying in.
Doesn't matter if he flat spots those, he's about to lose them for the harder, non-stripy set of tyres. And I understand from somebody who really should know, who will remain nameless, that Alonso's side of the garage won't share strategy these days with Hamilton's side. Can't verify that, but I have heard it. And until the first pit stop is over, Raikkonen pits as well for Ferrari. So Hamilton should come out in the lead. He had about 2.5 seconds advantage, and that is going to be very tight down into turn 1, and there it is. He has got the lead, but Alonso will have the momentum. He's not close enough to use it.
Yeah. So Alonso remains in second place, and is that the end of the race as far as McLaren are concerned? But they certainly can't afford to ease off their pace, because Raikkonen is now back out again on the faster kind of tyre, the softer Bridgestone here. Both McLarens are on the harder tyre. Massa will have to take the harder tyre as well. And although Raikkonen is some way down, they cannot ease off too much.
I think McLaren have got to give it and find out how fast Raikkonen is when he comes out of the pits before they can call the race off. But traditionally and common sensibly, now they should call it off. It's over between these two, as long as they can just judge their pace. But will Fernando Alonso pay any attention to that?
Well, as Ron Dennis said, you drive for the team first and yourself second. A major test of that then coming up in the final 22 laps as Felipe Massa pits from the lead on lap 52. into the closing stages of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis. 19 laps to go. Lewis Hamilton is leading by just under 2 seconds from Fernando Alonso. Two teammates at McLaren at the front. 16 seconds behind them is Felipe Massa in third place, and Kimi Raikkonen, his teammate, who has just switched onto the faster of the two Bridgestone tyres, but unfortunately couldn't get back out in front of Felipe Massa. And so I think they're just too far away to make any inroad, really, on the McLarens, who are still lapping at a ferocious pace in the mid 1 minute 13s. It's been an eventful Grand Prix. It's been a tense Grand Prix as far as the McLaren pair are concerned. In the opening stint, Hamilton led away from pole position, and Alonso dropped back from him. In this middle stint of the race, Alonso was the faster man, and there was one brief moment when Hamilton lost time behind one of the spikers that Alonso had a chance to pass him down the pit straight. Hamilton resisted. They were side by side, inches apart at 200 miles an hour. And after that, Alonso appeared to indicate to the McLaren pit wall he was unhappy that he had not been allowed to get past Lewis Hamilton. And Hamilton's having absolutely none of it. So McLaren's inter-team relations being stretched to the limit here. But at the front, Hamilton still leads, although the pace has dropped off now by about half a second a lap, so one wonders how long McLaren will leave it before telling their drivers to back off. Jarno Trulli is running in 5th place for Toyota, having done only a one-stop strategy here this afternoon in comparison with most of the others who've stopped twice. We're unsure whether he has to stop again. We will wait and see. One of the BMWs in trouble there, Heidfeld.
That sounds like a
big problem with the power steering.
Keep going, Nick, we know it, keep going.
Problem with the power steering. You can see Heidfeld struggling. It's a shame because he's been very strong all weekend. His teammate Sebastian Vettel, 19-year-old, on his debut here is standing in for Robert Kubica, who had that horrible accident in Canada. Vettel is running in 10th place. So this could, if he can't improve that, it could become BMW's only non-points finish of the season so far. But certainly Heidfeld looks destined for retirement, and I believe it might be a hydraulics problem, because you heard him also have a few problems with the gearbox, which is also driven by hydraulics.
Yes, sometimes the power steering is electric as well, but...
Box, Nick, try to bring it back slowly, no shift, slowly, no shift.
But I have to say it sounded more like transmission than power steering. But anyway, he's not going to bring it back. Those messages that are played out to us are quite significantly delayed. Even sometimes they look a bit strange when the car's being parked and he's getting a message, but the message would have got to him probably a minute earlier. Raikkonen now just 0.7 of a second behind Massa with the softer tyres on. He paid his price early in the race, got a bad start though, and he lost a lot of time, didn't he, behind Nico Rosberg, as you were saying earlier, James. Now he's going to get the reward for that. But Ferrari have a similar situation to McLaren in many respects, where how hard will they let their two drivers fight? But interestingly, McLaren are still lapping at the same pace as these two Ferraris, who are clearly flat out, so nothing's been called off at the front yet. They're 16 seconds clear. I would expect McLaren to start just easing the pace now. It's game over, isn't it? Hamilton surely has got it.
Well, I think he may well have done. They've eased off by half a second. They're now lapping in the low 114s. The same pace as the two Ferraris behind. They're covering them effectively. I don't think Ferrari have the speed here this afternoon. We've been here 7 times previously to Indianapolis, and Ferrari have won 6 of them. Most of them with Michael Schumacher, as Nick Heidfeld has a much-needed drink on this swelteringly hot day here in Indianapolis. The track temperature still 52 degrees, the air temperature 36. It's hot and it's humid here in Indiana, and Raikkonen chasing down Massa in the championship. Massa has 33 points, Raikkonen 27, so sooner or later these guys are going to have to score some major points if they want to get themselves back into contention with Hamilton and Alonso in the World Drivers' title race.
It's impressive that Heidfeld had a chair with him, isn't it, really? Wonder where he kept it. Convenient when you break down. Lap 58, the lead up 2.3 seconds at the moment. This pair of Ferraris 16 seconds in arrears. Webber is 5th and holding off. He's one stop today, holding off Kovalainen, who doesn't appear to have Webber's pace either. So strong result looking good there for Red Bull. Rosberg 7th, Trulli 8th, Vettel 9th. BMW out of the points with that retirement of Nick Heidfeld.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Mark Webber may have to stop again here this afternoon. He's got 15 laps to go to the finish. He made a very late Just running a very long middle stint here. Jarno Trulli has just made his second stop of the afternoon. That dropped him down into 8th place, and he's just 4 seconds in front of Sebastian Vettel. So that's the young man's target then on his debut. Try and get 1 World Championship point. And he'll also, Mark Webber will be in front of him when he comes back out of his pit. So it looks like Webber should be able to score some points here this afternoon as well. Jenson Button, well, he lost some time in his one and only pit stop here this afternoon. They had a refueling rig problem, and he lost about 7 seconds. He's been tucked up behind Alex Wurz for most of the Grand Prix, and he's down in 12th place at the moment with Anthony Davidson, his fellow countryman, 13th, just 3 seconds behind him, as we look at Alex Wurz, who's been on screen a lot today, locking up in the Williams.
Down in 11th place at the moment. Took a very early turn into that corner. I suspect he began to lose the rear of the car. When you drive these cars, you cannot believe how much more they move around than it appears from watching them on the TV. They're constantly sliding one end or the other. And actually, it's interesting. From time to time, Massa, do you remember Massa used to move his head around a lot, didn't he, inside the cockpit? And a little bit of that going on as well, as the violence of the energy when they hit the brake pedal down into turn 1 is moving his head around. And Webber pits, he wasn't one stopping. Or has he got a problem? He was 2 stopping. Sorry about that.
Yep, out he goes. Be interesting to see where he feeds back into the field. As Jean Todt makes some notes on the Ferrari pit wall. They need a quick response, Ferrari, to these problems that they've had. It's a lack of pace. Their development has not kept pace with McLaren and BMW in particular, and they're in danger, I think, of being overtaken by BMW fairly soon. This has been a great track for them in the past. You'd expect them to be strong here, but they are 15 seconds behind after 60 racing laps, and it looks to me as though Raikkonen is the quicker of the 2 men. He's on the softer tyre, remember, and is he going to try something in the closing stages? Meanwhile, at the front, Hamilton now lapping in the 1:14.3 range, so about 0.8 of a second slower than they were doing immediately after the second round of pit stops. Is that an indication that this race is now under control and it's Lewis Hamilton's for the taking?
Ferrari have gone the wrong way somewhere. Something they put on this car isn't right, isn't working. You see the drivers, instead of that one sweeping fluid movement of steering wheel as they're passing through the corners, they're fighting it, not dissimilar to how Button was earlier on in the season with the Honda as well. So they're going to have to backtrack. Something is wrong.
Well, there have been a lot of personnel changes, obviously, at Ferrari. No longer Michael Schumacher or Ross Brawn or Rory Byrne, designer, or Paolo Martinelli on the engine side. But sooner or later, those personnel changes have to make themselves felt. As we look at Webber battling with Trulli. This is for 7th and 8th places, and Trulli pushes Webber out wide, and Webber has no choice but to get off the throttle. Well, Heikki Kovalainen is having another strong run, coming off the back of his Montreal race performance. He's in 5th place at the moment. Teammate Fisichella we saw have a spin early on. That ruined his race strategy for this afternoon. Let's get an update on the Renault situation from Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, James just popped into their garage and they're pleasantly surprised, almost amazed actually. They feel that they had the pace of the BMW today, which certainly wasn't the case at the beginning of the season. And they feel they've made some real improvements. Fisichella, obviously, they'll be disappointed with his mistake earlier on, but he's battling through. Kovalainen wasn't particularly happy with the car a bit earlier on, but the car seems well balanced now and they're looking good for 5th, which they're happy about, but quite a change around from last year, isn't it?
Thank you for that, Ted. We're looking at the continuing battle, and I would almost call it a grudge match between Jarno Trulli in 7th place and Mark Webber in 8th. Webber will be a bit disgruntled because he was racing with Rosberg here this afternoon, and Rosberg has jumped him at the second round of pit stop. So Rosberg is up into 6th place for Williams, and now he's having trouble with Jarno Trulli. He's not got a great deal of time for Jarno Trulli. So I fancy there's going to be some fireworks before the end of this Grand Prix. Lining up a pass into turn 1. Here he goes. And he's going for it first time. Off the track, onto the grass. And that was a real... He won't be able to keep the place. He'll have to give it back because he cut the grass.
Yeah, he'll let him back through now. He's doing that. And he'll hook up behind him. He needs to make sure he doesn't lose another spot there to Vettel. Does Mark Webber. Vettel smelling a World Championship point. And... fancying a go at that, and he's run wide too, so Webber having to get so far out of it with dirty tyres as well to let... Well, he was kind of at the inside, but he overtook him off the racetrack, didn't he? Went on the apron on the inside of turn 1, bounced across the curb, and now he's got to have another go. I thought he got it, to be honest, because truly, as quite so often happens with Jarno, doesn't defend the inside line. And Mark sailing across the grass.
He was just carrying way too much speed, wasn't he? Running up the inside, and it's lucky Trulli avoided him, because they could quite easily have hit each other there. You just sensed that Webber was getting a bit hot under the collar there, and he wanted to get through as soon as possible. And now he's a bit vulnerable to Sebastian Vettel, and we'll find out how much steel that young man has got in his pursuit of his first World Championship point on his debut for BMW. We're looking back then at the Ferraris, still holding on about 14 seconds behind the race leaders. As you can see, Raikkonen pulled out that stunning lap to take fastest lap so far. Kovalainen and Vettel. Kovalainen showing how close the Renault is getting, as Ted was telling us, to the pace of the BMW. About 6/10 off, judging by the fastest race lap here.
It's surprising Raikkonen can't get closer to Massa there with the softer, faster tyres. Just can't seem to do anything about it. Lapping in the low 114s. Massa actually fraction faster on that lap. And he certainly hasn't been overshadowed by Raikkonen at all, has he, Felipe Massa?
Not at all. Not at all. A lot of people tipped Raikkonen to be their favourite for the World Championship. The ever-canny Bernie Ecclestone tipped Massa, knowing that the relationship he has with team boss Jean Todt would certainly be very valuable to Massa. But in the end, Ferrari, as we said before, have dropped back in the development race, and it's McLaren who are leading the way. Lewis Hamilton over 2 seconds over 2 seconds fast ahead of Fernando Alonso in second place then, and they're lapping still in the mid 1:14 range. I think it's been decided that Lewis is going to win this one. Massa third, Raikkonen fourth, Kovalainen fifth in the Renault, sixth Rosberg, seventh Jarno Trulli in the Toyota. That's a welcome result for them after some very difficult times. Mark Webber is eighth with Vettel in the BMW pounding him in ninth place. Fisichella is in 10th place.
Well, pretty sure that the fight has been called off with the two McLarens at the front, but stay tuned, because I'm looking forward to hearing what Fernando Alonso has to say in the press conference. But McLaren sensibly, and Massa there out of position. We've seen several drivers then run wide and spin off when they've got in that position in two. They never quite make it through three and spin in four. He didn't do that, but clearly Raikkonen has not been called off. Felipe Massa. Raikkonen desperately needs these points. He needed to go home from this North American tour with a win under his belt, really, but a third place would at least be something for him.
Yes, he's 21 points behind championship leader Lewis Hamilton at this point after just 6 races. This is the 7th round of this 17-round World Championship, and with McLaren in this kind of form, Raikkonen desperately needing to get some points as soon as possible. Well, if you want to get close to Formula One cars, then Goodwood is next weekend, the Festival of Speed. All 4 British drivers are supposedly going to be there. Hamilton, Coulthard, Button and Davidson, and an array of Formula One machinery as well. Always a great day out at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. As Massa leads Raikkonen across 3rd and 4th, then just 8 laps to go. This is one point of interest in the Grand Prix. Also, the battle between Trulli, Webber and Vettel has yet to be resolved. That's the other major battle on the racetrack.
Haven't seen much of the Maccas lately. They're comfortably out front, 15 seconds clear of this squabbling pair. Just 0.4 of a second according to the stopwatch. It looks closer than that, doesn't it? Kovalainen really in no man's land in 5th, 25 seconds behind the Ferraris. Not too shabby for him. And 18 seconds ahead of Rosberg, who's doing another great job for Williams. Trulli is just holding off Webber, is just holding off Vettel. This is about Anthony Davidson and Jenson Button, and
lovely pass.
Davidson does it.
Lovely, lovely pass by Anthony Davidson in what is effectively the car that Jenson Button was racing here last year. The Honda, with some modifications, the 2007 is now called the Super Aguri. Meanwhile, the 2007 Honda, which has been making some progress but still is a long way off the pace, has lost that place.
Button's very slow at the moment. I don't know, he's got some problems creeping in, but that would have been like a knife through his heart there.
Difficult to take for Jenson Button, but he's keeping his chin up. Looking forward to these new parts he'll be testing next week. And here is Anthony Davidson.
He came back for a double helping of slipstream, and Jensen not really feeling the need, especially on the slightly harder tyres there. Anthony's on the softer tyres with the white stripe. Jensen not feeling the need to be too aggressive.
Yeah, a bit like last weekend in Montreal, the car on the, once again, a Super Aguri on the right racing tyre. The faster of the two, able to pass the car on the slower racing tyre. Well, we heard at the beginning of the show that Tony George is hopeful that we'll be back at Indianapolis. I know Indianapolis are looking for a long-term deal. Bernie Ecclestone's made some negative comments about the circuit, its lack of promotion and various other things in recent weeks, but there's been some hard-nosed negotiation going on, and I'd say that this is an important venue on the F1 calendar, so certainly everyone involved in Formula One certainly hopes that we'll be coming back here again. 6 laps to go to the finish, on board with Webber. Vettel behind him, Trulli in front of him. 3 World Championship points at stake here for Webber if he can get in front of Trulli. Just under 19,000 RPM, these engines rev limited for 2007. There's 750 brake horsepower at the driver's disposal. Under his right foot, this is the slowest part of the racetrack. And then this is coming up to turn 11 now, 95 miles an hour at the apex. And from here to turn 1, he will not lift his foot off the throttle for 23 seconds. With his head leaning over to the side to allow more air to go into the airbox. More power in the straight line.
Maybe he wants to rest his neck, or his neck muscles are getting bashed about. It is tough around here for 73 laps. Mark Webber, I was looking around him from the cockpit there. There's so many aerodynamic pieces hanging off these cars. That's why they can't follow each other. Just bits of being dripping with aerodynamic devices that make them good by themselves and difficult to follow.
Well, we've lost Nick Heidfeld with what we believe is a hydraulics problem. Takuma Sato spun off into the gravel tracks. David Coulthard, Rubens Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher eliminated on the first corner of the Grand Prix in a 3-part accident. So just 5 cars not finishing.
Raikkonen getting very wide there in turn 4 and lost some ground to Massa.
We're focusing on the Ferrari battle at the front. Lewis Hamilton still leading by that 2-second margin. They're lapping in the low 1-minute 14s, just covering off their pace. 14 seconds clear of these 2 Ferraris, and I mentioned earlier on that Damon Hill and that Nigel Mansell both had their first victory and followed it immediately after with their second. Is that Rosberg going slowly in the Williams? I think it might be some bluish smoke coming out of the back of that car. Not sure what his problem is, but that engine doesn't look terribly happy to me.
Yeah, he's got to the end of the pit lane, which is important, so he's off the racetrack. Otherwise, they may have had to put the safety car out to clear that car. On fire now, the oil fire always, the engine oil is always so ready to catch fire from the hot exhaust pipes that are right beside the engine. Rosberg was running in 6th place, a great chance of some World Championship points, and just 4 laps to go. He's out of the Grand Prix, which of course puts Sebastian Vettel, the teenager, into a point-scoring position in P8.
That's enormous frustration. You can just see it for Nico Rosberg. Lots of adrenaline as well. And he was on for World Championship points. And there's Rod Nelson, who runs the race effort, one of the men who came across from Renault. Sam Michael, the technical director, watching this back in the UK, hasn't travelled to this race. He was quite proud of the increased reliability at Williams this year. Last year was a nightmare for them, reliability-wise, but unfortunately, they've possibly the Toyota engine in the back of that has let go, possibly some other failure in the engine bay, but either way, it's put Rosberg out in the closing stages. Vettel is in the points then. On his debut, he's 8th. Hamilton leads, Alonso 2nd, Massa 3rd, Raikkonen 4th. Kovalainen looks set to get 4 more points in 5th place. Great run for him. Jarno Trulli, fantastic job in 6th place for Toyota. 7th Webber, looking for his first championship points of the year, and Vettel in 8th.
These Ferraris have been pushing hard. Strange line into the corner there for Felipe Massa. Sort of defending fresh air there, really not needing to go in too tight, but got in anyway. Replay of Rosberg's Toyota blowing up there.
Echo view, pull up to a fire extinguisher where you can. Then jump out. It's a good bit of...
You can see the back of the car drop down as it melts the rear suspension. It's all just nailed on. What's this? McLaren making its way through the back markers, but it's all attached to the gearbox, which is obviously right on the back of the engine. All the exhaust pipes just melted it and it dropped.
Well, just as that happened, I was saying, reminding you of Mansell and Hill winning back-to-back victories straight after their first win, and Lewis Hamilton is going to emulate them here today in Indianapolis. He's got just 2 more laps to go to the finish as he crosses the line, and it'll be very, very interesting to hear what Fernando Alonso has to say about this. He came to McLaren as a 2-time world champion, expecting to lead their World Championship challenge. It started out well enough, but Hamilton has raised his game and raised the bar, and Alonso has not been able to deal with it. Here today, he may feel that as Liuzzi parks his Toro Rosso, Alonso may feel that he should have been given the advantage, but McLaren plays scrupulously fair between the two drivers, and it's going to be very, very interesting to gauge Alonso's reaction to this. I have a feeling it might be a bit emotional.
It was being explained to me before the race just why this circuit is so hard on engines and transmissions. Obviously the long, straight, heavy revs, and also because you've got a very high top speed and a very low speed, the gear ratios are spread far and wide, and it does challenge the gearboxes around here, particularly, of course, with the banking oil surge as well. So it's easy enough for the drivers, this racetrack, but I think quite a technical challenge.
Well, it's one of the shortest laps of the year, but this lap is going to feel long for Lewis Hamilton. 2.6 miles away from back-to-back Formula One victories. Fernando Alonso, the bridesmaid on this occasion, and that is a role he does not enjoy playing. Ferrari's challenge has not materialised here this afternoon. They're 13 seconds behind as we ride on board with Raikkonen locking up into turn 8 in his rather forlorn pursuit of Felipe Massa.
2 or 3 times he's dipped his right tyre onto the grass there. He's pushing hard. He wants that podium place.
Hamilton then down the short back straight into turn 8. The fans in the grandstand, he's certainly won over America in terms of fans. There's a lot of people getting behind him here. He's through the slowish final corners, and it'll just be turn 11 and 12, the banked oval corner of 13, and Lewis Hamilton will come across the line. He picks up his speed. I'm sure he'll wave to the crowd as he comes through. An absolutely stunning drive, a steely drive. Lewis Hamilton wins! The first British driver to win in America for 24 years, and like the Beatles many years ago, he's conquered the United States on his very first visit.
Some congratulations there from Fernando Alonso. His lead now 10 points. Hamilton's lead over Alonso 10 points, and that was a perfect drive. He really did have to defend that one. He didn't drive away like last weekend. He was defending that one all the way through until about 12 laps to go when the team called it off.
Yes, guys! Once again, you did a fantastic job, as always, and we brought it home. Fantastic, guys. I love you all.
Welcome back to Indianapolis, where McLaren and Mercedes have extended their lead over Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, and Lewis Hamilton now has a double-digit points lead in the Drivers' title. He's 10 points clear of Fernando Alonso thanks to his back-to-back victories in North America, and an ecstatic Lewis Hamilton steps up onto the nose of his car. What an awesome pair of drives here in North America. Montreal last weekend, and now Indianapolis as well. Phenomenal performance. Alonso second, Massa third. There he is for Ferrari. Raikkonen fourth. Kovalainen finished fifth in the Renault. Jarno Trulli in the Toyota was sixth. Seventh, Mark Webber, his first points of the year for Red Bull. And eighth on his debut, the 19-year-old Sebastian Vettel, standing in for the injured Robert Kubica, scores 1 point for BMW. Who's your driver of the day, Martin?
Three choices really. Vettel, great job for him, made a few leery errors early on. I thought Kovalainen drove well too, but it has to be Lewis Hamilton. Had to defend hard. Stole a pole position yesterday that he didn't look like he was going to get, and then made best use of it. Lewis Hamilton, certainly my driver of the day. I love statistics and trivia, and for 9 of the last 10 years, the driver that left race 6 of the Formula 1 World Championship in the lead of the championship won the world title.
There's the body language between the two. That's important for the world to see, to understand the nature of their competitive relationship. It's not animosity between these two. It's a pure competitive sporting relationship. And today, once again, Alonso second best. It's hot out there, says Lewis. And of course, did you see him running up the stairs to prove a point to everybody? Fresh as a daisy. And he does right by the sponsors as well. Flipping the watch on. What a pro.
Giro rolls up. They're all told that in karting. Get your sponsors on the TV. Thank you.
Alonso second on the racetrack and second to the water bottle as well. He's got to find something to get himself in front of this 22-year-old from Stevenage in Hertfordshire.
That's Alonso's message. He was beaten fair and square, and I think now he's got out of the car. He's accepted that.
It wasn't just in the race, as Lewis's father Anthony enjoys it. It wasn't just in the race he was beaten in qualifying as well.
British driver, British constructor, just one national anthem. Then, of course, Lewis Hamilton looking very relaxed about it. What a collection of those. He's got 7 races in, 7 trophies. That Anthony. Dr. Zetcher up there collecting the Constructors Award for Mercedes-Benz. Not often to see him up there.
It's going to be a very closely fought World Championship battle this year. At the moment, it looks like it's between the 2 McLaren drivers, but don't ever count Ferrari out. Could quite easily come back with some updates. There's Alonso, a driver who does not take well to not winning. He's got to come up with something. Felipe Massa and Ferrari never in it. Their tremendous record here at Indianapolis, well and truly interrupted by McLaren.
Disqualified last weekend for jumping the red light at the end of the pit lane. Jean Todt there, more used to being up on the podium and receiving these trophies, but I think Massa will consider that a good save with 3rd place.
So Hamilton is 10 points clear with 10 races to go. He scored 20 points on this side of the Atlantic. For Lewis Hamilton, it's an American dream.
Yeah, what an extraordinary young man. He's done it again, 7 races into his Formula 1 career. He's been on that podium for 7 occasions, and he's on the top step for the 2nd straight weekend. He's done just about everything in Formula 1 so far, except make a mistake. We'll get all the reaction to this United States Grand Prix. Some of it might be pretty interesting, despite the display of cordiality up on the rostrum behind us. Stand by for all the reaction in just a couple of minutes. For the second straight weekend, Britain's Lewis Hamilton is a winner. He follows up that success in Montreal with an outstanding victory in this United States Grand Prix. He resisted all the challenges that his teammate Fernando Alonso could throw at him. Another superlative performance from a young man who now leads the Formula One Drivers' Championship by 10 points from his world champion teammate Fernando Alonso. Another incredible day for Lewis Hamilton. Let's get the swift reaction of Mark Blundell. Will there be any complaints do you anticipate from Fernando Alonso? There were hugs up there on the podium.
I don't think there's any reason to have any complaints whatsoever. He's been beaten fair and square. It's been a fantastic situation for Lewis.
And Lewis's drive today, he showed what kind of qualities? Very similar qualities to those he showed in Montreal.
Well, we said after Montreal, Steve, that once he's won one, he's going to get stronger and stronger, and that's certainly the case today. Start to finish, under a little bit of pressure at times, but nothing what worried him one little bit.
Well, let's take a look at the start, and Alonso came at him so hard, but Lewis's track position was absolutely spot on.
No, I mean, Lewis actually was fantastic off the start. He just put a little bit of a defensive move in there to make sure that Alonso was kept behind. Alonso did actually put him under a great amount of pressure, but, you know, it was a clean start, no problems whatsoever. The back of the grid a little bit more connected with Ralf Schumacher making an incident and hitting in the back of Coulthard. Unfortunate.
So he handled that attack so well. Then he seemed to be faster in the first section of the race. After those first pit stops, Alonso, it seems, was fueled shorter. Was he trying to encourage any sort of team tactics from McLaren?
I think Alonso felt that there may be some situation where he should be out in the circuit to make that break while Lewis is in the pit. But, you know, overall, I think you've got to do it out in the circuit. You've got to get track position. I don't think there's anything on strategy there what went wrong at all. It was just a straight fight, and Lewis came out on top.
We will have time to analyse what happened a little bit more, but the thoughts from within the press conference will be very interesting indeed. Let's go straight in there now.
And Lewis winning your second successive Grand Prix.
What a dream. To come into two circuits that I didn't know, my first time, you know, to really come out with such pace, to see the team moving forward always and being competitive, and just to see how much work the team back home, back in Brixworth, in Woking, in Stuttgart, how hard they all work to produce the car and to develop it. And they've done a fantastic job, and really I'm just so thankful to them, because it wouldn't be possible without them. And the guys here, they're a great bunch of guys, and did a fantastic job on strategy, setting up the car. So really, it's a perfect team, and you know, I'm really happy I could put the icing on the cake.
And a very, very close race with your teammate Fernando throughout the race distance. You took the lead at the start, but by lap 38, Fernando was right there, and there was pressure all the way.
It was, especially the middle stint. I think the first stint, the first couple of laps was extremely close. And then, obviously, I managed to pull a slight gap and maintain that. And then going to the middle stint, the outlap, the first two laps were very good, and then my tyres just decided to grain. So maybe I pushed too hard on them immediately. And so Fernando was right up my tail, and it was extremely difficult. Obviously, he's in my slipstream the whole time, so he would always catch me down the straights. And so whatever I gain midfield, I lose on the straight. And so it was very, very tough, but he fought very well. Very professional, and you know, at the end I managed to pull a gap, and we both I was able to maintain that gap and control the rest of the race.
As we say, your second successive win, but a win in the United States here at Indianapolis. Talk us through the closing laps of the race. Did it seem like a long, hot day for you?
It did. Obviously, it was great to see that there's a big crowd here, and they're all very, very supportive. A lot of British flags out there, which is fantastic for me. I get a lot of energy from that. But the last few laps were, it just seemed to be very long. You know, they came across the radio and said 15 laps, and I was like, okay. And then 15 laps just seemed a lifetime, especially when you're out in the lead, trying to maintain it, not to push too hard, not to damage the car. And so, but I was able to do it, and as I said, just very, very emotional.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you,
Lewis. Fernando ran one lap longer into the first stint. Looked as if you might have a fuel advantage. Very, very close on lap 38 there, as Lewis just said.
Yeah, very close. I think at the start also was very close, but I didn't manage to overtake Lewis, and from then on, I think you know, when you follow someone, you lose a little bit of downforce, and it's difficult to get the tires in conditions to push all through the stint, because you damage the tires maybe a little bit more when you run. behind someone. So I think, yeah, I tried in the middle stint, and I was side by side once here on the main straight. But again, it was not enough to overtake him, and the last stint was just maybe a conservative one. It was very difficult to overtake, very difficult to follow anyone. So we just, I think, start thinking in the French Grand Prix.
We saw you run a little bit wide on lap 46 as well. Was that a function of perhaps the tyres getting a little bit dirty?
Yeah, it's so difficult to run behind anyone here. I think on the main straight helps you. You can gain 1 or 2 tenths in the main straight because you take the slipstream, but in the rest of the corners you lose so much downforce, you lose so much time. So yeah, I think this race, I think the start was the key point of the race, because after that, I think wherever it was second, he will finish second in the race.
And if I can just ask you, how would you describe your start?
Well, I think it was good, but I think we both break more or less in the same point, and the start is always risky. I remember Canada going off in the grass and losing one position, so obviously I was with my teammates, so you try to overtake, but what you don't want is to finish the race in the first corner. So 8 points are better than nothing. So we increased the gap to Ferrari, which is one of the main things in this first part of the championship.
Congratulations, Fernando. Thank you. And turning to our Ferrari driver, Felipe Massa, third again. You probably don't want to hear that, but it looked like a lot of pressure from Kimi at the end there. You're on slightly different tyre compounds at the end of the race.
Yeah, it was a big pressure. Kimi was on different tyres than me, and for sure he had better grip, better track grip as well in the end of the race. So he was able to close very, very much the gap. But for sure, I did a good start. He didn't, and I could manage to make a good gap there. And then he got close, but he was after the last pit stop. So in the end, it was good. Managed to keep the car on the track, not making mistakes, and just keep him behind.
And how do you feel about the race against McLaren Mercedes today? Talk us through the first few laps. Do you feel you're any closer to McLaren at this point than you were perhaps in Canada or Monaco?
Well, in the first stint I was maybe a bit closer, but they was pulling away the gap slowly, lap by lap, making 3 tenths quicker and everything. So, and then it was difficult for me to follow. So there wasn't just create the gap, especially Lewis was going away quite quickly. And my car, I couldn't push so much because I started sliding around. So, and then I just saw them going away. So it was for sure quite difficult for us to beat them today. But it's good to finish third and fourth.
Ferrari with their frustrations. Fernando Alonso has to give second best once again, and the Grand Prix winner for the second straight weekend. Britain's Lewis Hamilton, and Anthony Hamilton joins us here in the paddock, and we have to say, I suppose, happy Father's Day after that.
Thank you very much. Fantastic day. I'm here again. I can't believe it.
Reaction to that, and a story that just gets better and better.
Yeah, I mean, it's Lewis felt quite good going into the Thursday and the Friday. On the qualifying Saturday, obviously, I think the pole came and it was unexpected for us, but it was a fantastic feat, and we started today really quite calm, and he was pushed to the end, so it was a fantastic day today as well.
And then that was an absolutely straight fight until about a dozen laps from the finish. What were your feelings when Fernando really took the battle to Lewis?
Something, I mean, that's what we need, I mean, as a rookie, you need to learn, you need to be pushed by the best, and he was today. Hopefully, I mean, I didn't see Lewis make any mistakes, so I'm hoping that he learnt a lot, and hopefully next time it'll just be harder to beat.
Back to the UK now, and does that mean you come back to Earth, or does this hectic schedule and all the attention continue?
Well, we're looking forward to getting back to see the family, to be quite honest. Both of us, we're fairly homesick. We've only been away a couple of weeks, but looking forward to seeing the family. And I'm not sure what we'll do. I think we'll probably have a nice quiet Sunday roast next week, and enjoy cracking open a bottle of champagne.
Absolutely no chance of that. I think you're due at Goodwood, aren't you?
Oh yes, yeah, that's right. We will be at Goodwood.
I know your diary better than you.
Yes, yeah, cheers.
Off you go and give our congratulations to Lewis.
All
Another fantastic performance. And some final thoughts here from Mark about what Fernando Alonso might genuinely be feeling about the way that race unfolded.
I tell you what he's genuinely feeling. He's feeling he's been beaten fair and square, and he's also thinking now that all of a sudden there is a real threat to a world championship for him. Lewis Hamilton has to be in a reckoning now to pull this off. He's 2 on the row. He's got a little advantage now, a whole Grand Prix win advantage at this point. And at some stage in the very near future, his brain will have to tick in to say, right, the World Championship is mine for the taking.
He tried to push, and Lewis defended absolutely brilliantly. We saw mistakes coming from Alonso once again. He was just pushing that bit too hard.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of all of this, both the guys pushing as hard as they can. There's nothing there from McLaren saying, look, back off. They're both going in at hammer and tong. But again, you're right, Steve. Alonso just making a small error, and again Lewis Hamilton making no mistakes whatsoever, and that is the remarkable thing for all of us down here, to actually see this guy make no mistakes, 0.
And how seriously do we now have to think of Lewis in terms of the World Championship title?
Very, very, very seriously indeed. He is a contender, and he's leading the World Championship. Say full Grand Prix win under his belt in terms of margin, and I think it's quite possible, really is.
Well, he'll be back in the UK. As we say, he'll be at Goodwood next weekend. But ahead of all that, well, another chance to see highlights and the story of this United States Grand Prix at 11:50 tonight on ITV.